This is a very good venue for us. We've been an active participant for many years in supporting it, and we find the presentations to be very relevant and good, as well as the networking opportunities.
I think this is one of the great venues for having lots of professionals in the industry come together once a year, almost like a ritual, and showing the greatest and latest from everybody and talking to each other and understanding what's going on.
Conferences like this, I learn a lot. I don't travel that much. I don't go to all that many meetings, but Global Mill Satcom is one of the ones that's definitely worth going to.
We just learned that your first Global Express satellite is going to be going up in December. That's got to be good news.
Yeah, we were really pleased. As you and I have talked about before, having had a Proton launch failure this year, you've always got to be worried about whether you can hold the schedule. Yep. We're very pleased that we're still expecting launch this year, and 2 more next year. 2 more next year.
And you've just ordered a 4th GX as well.
We have indeed. That's available to us as a insurance against launch failure if we need it, and our hope and expectation, although we've not yet committed to it, is that will also augment the capacity in the network.
So right now that's held down as a ground spare. If needed immediately, you've got it immediately, and if not, then you can launch it at leisure, depending on what demand looks like.
Absolutely right.
And the presumption is you're going to be launching it?
Our hope and expectation is we will.
All right. This is not a good time to be talking about the U.S. government as a big customer, because the U.S. government's financial situation, as you know, budget situation, is messy. Foggy, if you want. Is there any reason to think that GX is going to have a slower than expected takeoff with the U.S. government because of the budget woes that you obviously couldn't have anticipated when you started Global Express?
Well, I don't actually look after the US government customer, so let me preface my comments with that. But so far we've seen a lot of enthusiasm. GX does a great job of augmenting WGS. And because of that, it can do certain things that WGS can't. In particular, it's ideal for allowing the transit of aircraft and platforms between the WGS spot beams. Because of that, we are hopeful that the take-up from the US military will be in line with our expectations. Okay, too early to tell, but that's our hope and expectation.
Fair enough. Okay, so on the military KA frequencies that GX has, the high capacity overland, who gets use of that?
So because of the way that GX is licensed, access to that capability is constrained by the way that we've been licensed, and as a result, it's available to NATO nations, and the Five Eyes.
Okay. So all 29 NATO nations.
All 29 NATO nations.
Not necessarily as part of NATO operations.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good.
And we think that's a pretty big audience with which to start taking that service to market.
Yeah, and not all of them have the same budget concerns as the United States, but not all of them are in the greatest financial shape either in terms of budget outlays.
That's correct. But as we talked about at the conference this week, one of the great things about SATCOM is actually an enabler of cost reduction as opposed to being a cost driver. The more capability and bandwidth you have available to an asset, the more effective that asset can operate and the lower its operating costs. And we gave some examples this week about how you can drive down the cost of the operation of either a frigate or a helicopter by providing it with a satellite link.
Yeah.
And if you look more broadly, if you provide troops with the ability to access back office services, administration, in-theatre training, whilst in theatre, you can actually deploy much more of your force structure. So if you look at a total cost of having SATCOM, actually it reduces the cost of the overall enterprise rather than accelerating it.
Well, you mentioned the frigate. I have to go up to the frigate. So you said a frigate costs, by your estimates, you've kicked the tires, approximately $7,500 US per hour of operations.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Adding SATCOM to a frigate that doesn't have it, full suite of SATCOM, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The prices can go up and down with that. You can recoup that investment in 10 hours.
Well, that was kind of fun yesterday as we were trying to work out whether my maths was right or wrong. My simplistic maths says if you're talking about $50,000 for a high capability commercial SATCOM terminal, talking about a year's worth of satellite capability, you can transform the operational capability of that frigate. So you may not be at 10 hours, but you're certainly well less than 100. And I'd be happy to work with any naval operator to run the real numbers, because I don't have all the detailed data, but I reckon we'll end up somewhere between 10 and 100, and I think it'll be nearer 10 than 100.
Oh no, even 10, the fact that several dozen is something I hadn't thought of. And you ran the similar calculations for airborne platforms?
Yeah, the airborne platforms, particularly the large rotary platforms, it's an even more compelling argument. Rotary platforms are often retasked. So if you send a helicopter that the published data I can get hold of says it's about $20,000 per hour to run the big platforms. If you send that helicopter off on a mission that turns out to be needing retasking mid-mission, so effectively it's a failed mission, one mission will pay for the SATCOM fit.
You're assuming no SATCOM at all, and then SATCOM. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Does the same argument apply if you throttle up and go higher end SATCOM services, or is it just basically it's a digital, either you have it or you don't?
Well, there are analyses that have been done that basically shows that if you have high data rate SATCOM capability and therefore have the full suite of situational awareness data, you have the ability to move radar data, situational mapping, then you can improve the security and effectiveness of the asset. Depending which asset you are and what your operational role is, then you can really start to make major differences. If you're an attack platform, having high capacity SATCOM really changes your mission profile. Probably not something we should talk about on this interview in any more detail, but it makes a difference.
Okay, all right. Operational scenario, you mentioned the wideband global SATCOM constellation of satellites in geostationary orbit the U.S. government is fielding. And there are going to be at least 6, maybe up to 10 of those. And then Global Express with this high capacity overlay is an overlay onto that. So in regions where there might not be enough Ka band that can be satisfied by WGS, here we come with GX. Is that correct?
Well, that's part of the story. It's not the whole story. So part of the story is that WGS absolutely augments national satellite systems. WGS is one of those. Skynet is another. The French Athena Thetis system, French-Italian Athena Thetis, all benefit from the fact that GX is able to provide more Ka spot beam capacity when they need it. But what really makes the difference in the military market is the fact that uniquely Global Express provides that cellular-like global coverage that Inmarsat has always provided at L-band. We'll continue to provide the L-band coverage as well, and we can blend the L-band coverage with the Ka coverage. And the design of GX is actually very smart. I wish I could take credit for it. The system is designed to allow users to roam between the L-band service and the Ka band service. So that gives them the speed benefits you get from having Ka, and it gives you the availability benefits you have from L-band. Now that our L-band is starting to achieve high data rates, you heard this week about our HDR product. The first of those is delivering 650 gigabits plus into a device about the size of a laptop. Put two together, you're getting about 1.3 megabits. So that's a great fallback capability. that allows you to maintain pretty high data rate links if your GX happens to hit, if your KA happens to hit some rain fade. So all of that, as an augmentation to spot beam capability, really increases the ability of people to operate around the world when they need to with no notice deployment.
Tell me about the handoff. I'm going from an L band to a GX, or I'm going from WGS KA band to GX KA band. How does that handoff work?
Okay, well let me start with how GX works within the normal commercial band when you're in a roaming mode. GX is designed to allow us to roam using roaming services just the same as our L-band service does, so that allows you to do beam-to-beam transition. But on top of that, we've worked with Cisco to develop the service enablement platform. And a key part of the service enablement platform is the ability to instantly reroute between the L and the KA services without losing the overall signal link, and in particular without losing crypto lock. So that allows users to seamlessly roam between beams and to seamlessly roam between the L-band service and the KA-band service as they transit across the globe.
And there's nothing they have to do?
Absolutely nothing they have to do. We've been working with terminal manufacturers to create terminals that are able to roam between the MIL-KA service and the commercial service. Now, it's less seamless to switch from MIL-KA to the roaming service, but it's the same terminal with the same terminal with the same equipment. If you look at the L3 Panther, what we've done with that particular device is we've taken the opportunity of the fact that commercial KA band sits right next to the military KA band, and we've worked with L3 just to extend the capability of the terminal to be able to tune to any of those frequency bands. So therefore, there's no change of hardware. It's simply the modem that you fit, and whether the modem that you fit is able to achieve both frequency bands. If you've got a modem that can tune across the bands, you've got something that can go anywhere.
And presumably most users will.
That's our expectation.
How far north or south can GX go?
Ooh, it's a GEO spacecraft, so you're limited by the normal GEO coverages. I'm not going to give you the numbers just because I'd be bluffing to tell you otherwise.
Well, then you heard some stuff earlier this week. They're doing some tests now, pretty far north
Yeah.
on platforms. So these GEOs can go.
Our GEOs can go well north and well south, and we know we've got users now who have been able to transit the Northwest Passage very comfortably. You also heard this morning from the New Zealand military saying what fantastic the performance they're getting out of our L-band spacecraft down near the South Pole.
Yeah. Schedule. You lost a little time because of the Proton rocket failure. You're back on track now. Proton's returned to flight. You've got a flight, assuming the mid-November launch goes okay, in sometime first half of December. Walk us through 2014 to global service introduction.
Okay, so first spacecraft this year. Launch timings are always slightly variable, but our expectation is certainly before the end of the year. Then our expectation is it takes a little while to get that spacecraft on station. So we're expecting to be doing testing of that first spacecraft with partners. So user testing of that first spacecraft with our partners in the April timeframe. And then May, June, July, we'll be doing some pretty intensive testing with end user governments, getting them really comfortable about the operational performance they can expect of that system. With an ability then to move into commercial services Q3, Q4 next year under the first spacecraft. Two more launches next year. I can't give you the timing off the top of my head, but we get 2 more next year with a view that says we get to global CSI, global commercial service introduction early the following year.